Welcome into the SBR Betting Roundtable for Wednesday, December 19th, talking college football, NFL, NHL, some best bets at the end. Got the normal crew here. Donnie Rightside, follow him on Twitter at RightSideVP. Donnie, welcome into the show. How are you feeling today?
Hey, feeling good, man. Fresh off nice little winner last week with the Indianapolis Colts -2.5. Pulverized those Dallas Cowboys. Some interesting playoff scenarios setting themselves up for Saturday and Sunday NFL football this week. I think there's some winners out there that can be found. Good to be on the show. Always happy to be part of the roundtable.
Good to have you, Donnie. And 2.5, key number, got the win. Good for you. We got Ian Cameron up next. Follow him on Twitter at Babano. Welcome in, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, it's good to be with you guys. I mean, we're down to, 2 shows left in the roundtable for this year? I mean, amazing. 2018, it's like we hardly knew you. You're out the door already, and we're ready to bring in a new year in just a couple weeks. But time flies, busy time of year, still lots to break down. NFL's winding down, college football bowl season in full swing, college basketball. Things are really ready to ramp up their conference season right around the corner. Hockey's still going strong. NBA, lots to sink your teeth into. If you can't find something to bet this time of year, that's your fault, only yours.
Only your fault for sure, Ian. And we'll have the roundtable next week, the day after Christmas, and that's Boxing Day? Is that what it is?
December 26th is Boxing Day, right?
Yep, that's right. Boxing Day is next Wednesday, but we'll still be here, yeah.
Is that a Canadian holiday, Ian?
That's what I heard, Drew, is that it's only
English also,
as Boxing Day
isn't
in
it
Canada.
English too?
Yeah, I think it's linked to, because remember, Canada was a British and Commonwealth. That was under that whole regime, Canada as a country. So sometimes they go by certain things Brits do. I honestly don't know if the Brits actually go by that. I do know it's Canadian. They call it Boxing Day, but we'll see. It's because you put all your Christmas gifts in boxes and put them away. That was the sense of them calling it Boxing Day the day after Christmas. But I don't know. It's a stat holiday. It's recognized as a statutory holiday, which means you get it pay. You're off work with pay for December 26th. So why not? Anything for a holiday, right?
Yeah, good for all the Canadians up there for the holiday there. And a boxing fan in his own right, big man on campus. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. Big man, welcome into the show.
Boxing Day, Drew, is actually celebrated in many different countries, from Nigeria to Australia to Canada to England. So yeah, very, very busy holiday around Christmas.
We should have just asked you right off the bat. I knew you would know the background behind Boxing Day, big man.
Somewhat, I do.
All right, guys. Well, let's get right into it. Bowl season is here. Like Ian just touched on, bowl week will be next week for the roundtable. But we got some good games up. We got the DXL Frisco Bowl going tonight, guys. It's on ESPN, 8 p.m. Eastern kick. Ohio, San Diego State. Looks like the Ohio Bobcats laying 2.5, key number here. So make sure to shop around on SBR odds. Make sure you're not laying a 3. It's mostly 2.5s out there. 51.5 the total. I like the Ohio Bobcats coming in. It was one of the teams I was looking to get on and also fade San Diego State. And Ian, we can start off with you. But last night I went to the Boca Raton Bowl, and one thing was very obvious to me. One, I made a bet because I went and lost that bet. I bet on Northern Illinois, and they were not as athletic. Their offensive line and defensive line were outsized, outmanned, getting pushed around. That MAC team, Northern Illinois, was just getting bulldozed over, not the stronger team. It was very obvious just from being in the stands that they were outmanned. Could you see that happening again tonight? Because I was looking to get on the Bobcats, but haven't made a bet yet.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup concern here for Ohio is going to be, can they run the football? And that's not an easy thing to do against the San Diego State team. And you're worried that if they're one-dimensional and relegated having to throw the ball, are they going to be able to have success offensively in this game? I'm not so sure they're going to. But this is not a vintage San Diego State team. I mean, this was not a team that really impressed for extended stretches during the course of the season. Their quarterback issues. Their quarterback was banged up at one point earlier this season. Juwan Washington missed some time. The defense at times got ripped apart, believe it or not, by teams like UNLV moved the ball against San Diego State. Even Hawaii had success moving the ball against San Diego State late in the season. So to me, this is not a great San Diego State team, but there are concerns that I have with Ohio because the strength of the San Diego State defense is stopping the run. If they have to rely too much on my Canadian pal O'Rourke to have to throw the ball, could be a little bit of an issue. But you got to like the way Ohio played down the stretch, no question about it. I'd lean Ohio at 2.5 now. I'm just not enamored enough with San Diego State to take them, but there's enough concerns that I have about the matchup here with San Diego State in terms of them being able to shut down this run game. And I'm telling you what, last night, I talked about that bowl game multiple times. I wrote about it in a couple articles. Northern Illinois' track record was just beyond bad. 0-5 straight up and against the spread under carry. So that's what you were basically going with if you were on Northern Illinois last night. And UAB obviously got the job done there. This game, I'm going to lean Ohio still at 2.5, especially now that I can get that. I'm going to lean in that direction. I'm going to have no part of this from a personal wagering standpoint. But if I'm going to throw a lean out there, a little bit to Ohio. I think they got a chance. I just don't think this is one of those vintage San Diego State teams we've seen in years past.
Yeah, no argument here, Ian. I will say this. I do think Ohio has the better quarterback. Nathan Rourke, 22-7 his touchdown to interception ratio, over 60% passer on the year. Also a pretty true dual threat guy. Ran for over 800 yards on the ground. Big man, how are you feeling about Ohio, San Diego State tonight?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting game. It's strength for strength. And like last night, Drew, I was on Northern Illinois myself, but I think one thing that I don't think we were able to account for was the fact that the quarterback, the backup, was quite good throwing the ball. And if you can't run the ball, why not throw it? San Diego State, a very good run defense, but they do struggle against the pass. I mean, 73rd in the country in passing yards allowed. You can beat them over the top. And I know people like Donnie know about guys like Poppy White who have been at Ohio for a long time. They're guys that can become matchup nightmares, in the slot and things like that. I would look for maybe Nathan Rourke to maybe try to beat them a bit more over the top as opposed to just running and not getting anything out of it. If you can't run the football, why not throw it? You're going to be able to do that against SDSU. Do I agree? Yeah, it is a vintage. It's not a vintage San Diego State team, but Rocky Long's still a guy that I generally want to trust. You're going to have Jawan Washington back for this game. That's obviously going to help. I think SDSU played a bit better competition as well. It's a tough game. I would frankly probably pass on the game. I hate to do that, but these bowl games have been pretty tough, and this one is no different. If Ohio can throw the football over the top, I think they have a really good shot here because I don't think San Diego State can stop it. But on the other hand, maybe Christian Chapman and that group can move the ball because I think we've all learned as well this defense isn't very good for Ohio. Maybe a sneaky over here.
Yeah, the over hit last night and with ease. I think that was obviously the correct side for the total. Donnie, it's a singled out game on ESPN primetime. It's going to get a lot of tickets written. So we're talking about it. Do you have a strong feel either way?
Yeah, I mean, just to get back to the game last night and the bowl season as is, I can't think. I mean, bowl season's been around a long time, and there's advocates for it. Oh, don't expand the playoff. What's going to happen in the bowl season? This might be the worst 7 or 6 game start I've ever seen intrigue-wise for bowl games. They're all awful matchups, lower level teams, standalone games. And I guess that's what you get. Maybe it's going to increase. And thank God that we have like a semifinal where you have a Final Four and a champion. So at least you get some football because looking down the roster, just from a betting standpoint, from a fan standpoint, are any of these games of any interest until you get to Oklahoma versus Alabama? It's one of the worst slates I've ever seen intrigue-wise going like, ooh, that's a must-watch game. Does anybody give a damn about Georgia, Texas? I mean, that's supposed to be a marquee game. Georgia, Texas? Come on, man, get that out of here. Let's just have a 16, 24, 32-team playoff and get it popping in here because this game, again, we're breaking down a standalone football game, which is another horrific bowl game. But we do have to break it down. It's what we're here for, and we'll certainly do that. But getting back to one quick point last night in the UAB game, if I were to tell you the public was betting UAB, opened at 2.5, closed at 1, and you said, boy, UAB, all they do is run the football. They run. And I told you, hey, you know what? 2.9 yards per carry NIU is going to hold UAB to. You would have thought NIU would have smoked this football team like 31-6 last night. But voila, magic passing game just appears out of nowhere, which hasn't been there all season long for UAB, and you get a blowout, crushes the total, and we move on to tonight's game. So what are we looking for tonight when we're betting Ohio? Very versatile football team. Great run-pass guy, Nathan Rourke at quarterback. But here's the problem with him. Have you watched him all season long? When the going is good, I'll compare Cam Newton. When the going is good and he can hit those wide open guys, they're a pretty good football team in offense. But you've seen it time and time again. He can't hit the broadside of a barn and ends up 12 of 27 for 123 yards. The one thing you know from San Diego State, they're going to sit on this running game. They're going to sit on that fullback dive, A.J. Ouellette, Malik Irons, very capable guys. Poppy White's a good one. But if Nathan O'Rourke is a little bit off in this football game, they're going to struggle to move the football. But I'll get back to Jeff's point as well. It's a game I want no interest on betting here, and I don't have a reason to give anybody a lean because I can't see this game clearly at all. Complete flip of a coin, and I guess I'll take, the team getting the points, San Diego State.
And Donnie, just to follow up to that, I led off with just kind of the MAC team looking outmanned, out-athleticized, if you will. Mm-hmm. Could you see that happening again here? Because we get into conference play for, 8 or 9 weeks, and we kind of forget, this is a MAC team that played against MAC teams and a Mountain West team that played against Mountain West teams, and now they're going to play each other. It's something that at least I realized last night being at the game. I forgot to factor in that enough. Could you see that happening tonight?
Yeah, the interesting part is, though, MAC teams usually get shredded on the ground by anybody. That's their MO. And you looked at a game, MAC team earlier, EMU is very good against the ground, stood tall against that Georgia Southern team, and should have probably won the football game. But they actually have a field goal kicker for Georgia Southern. That came into a nice reasoning with a late field goal. But when you take a look at this game, if you just come in and you say, I'm San Diego State, and I just run the football, you should just be able to overpower this Ohio football team. I know looking down the stretch, San Diego State didn't have a good close to the season, but your same MO pops up again, Drew. MAC athletes aren't as good as any other conference athletes. So automatically when you step into the game, the other team is bigger, stronger, and faster. So what you're hoping is that the MAC is really excited to be in this bowl game. Or San Diego State says, Ohio, it's not Ohio State. It's not, it's Ohio. What are we even doing here at this point? That's almost what you're hoping for. You get an uninspired effort out of San Diego State because that defense should be able to clamp down on a MAC offense. They should overpower them.
Well said, Donnie. And we got another bowl game we're breaking down here tomorrow night, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, my favorite bowl name of bowl season, this one in Tampa. And it turns out it's a home game for USF. I think it used to be at the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium, at least last year, a couple years ago. They did move it to Raymond James Stadium, so it's a ipso facto home game for USF. Charlie Strong's group has had a tough run down the stretch of the season. He loses his OC. Not sure if that's a good thing, bad thing, whatever, to McNeese State. The special teams coach going to be calling the plays. That's a tricky handicap in itself. We got Marshall laying 352 the total. Big man, you want to start us off with the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl? Any opinion betting it?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, another game I talk with you about. I do like getting Doc Holliday in a bowl situation. I mean, he is generally very good in bowl games. I think they've won 5 straight bowl games. It's been a long time since they've had issues here. And, I've kind of talked with you. I've mentioned this to Donnie. If you're South Florida, you've lost 5 games in a row after that 7-0 start. Now you're not going anywhere for a bowl game. How excited are you to be in this game? I guess you are as a group because you made a bowl game, but you're not going anywhere. It's not a trip or anything. You don't get to have an experience. This is a hard-nosed Marshall team that gets it done against the run. I think they're top 5 in the country against the run. I don't really like Blake Barnett a ton. I don't know. This is another game where I want Doc Holliday. I like Doc Holliday, but, I'm not. If he was on another team, maybe I'd have more interest in the game. I like Marshall. I think they'll get it done, but another game that I just don't have a ton of intrigue or interest in. I think Donnie and everyone kind of hinted at the right calls here. These games suck. I mean, there's no reason I want to watch this game, and I don't really care. I mean, until we get deeper into the season, it's hard. This is not a game that I have much interest in, and a South Florida team that really isn't very good. I mean, they're probably one of the biggest frauds as far as bowl teams we have. I mean, they beat up on a bunch of bad teams early and got their ass kicked by a lot of good teams that they should have been a bit more competitive against. I lean Marshall. They're only giving up 105 yards a game on the ground. should be a good cap. Make Blake Barnett beat you. I don't know if he can do that.
Donnie, what are you thinking about the Gasparilla Bowl? You think it's another bad matchup, or you see any value betting a side or total in it?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to get the offense struggled this year under Blake Barnett, and now he's not even going to probably play in this football game. So now you're dealing with a backup quarterback. You're right, you're at home. You're not excited. You didn't go, 2,000 miles to an exotic location, have a lot of fun. You're eating at the same restaurants. Like, hey, let's go out to, we're going to have a big bowl celebration like Dave and Buster's. Yeah, I go there every Tuesday in town. Fantastic. There's nothing new to experience here for USF as opposed to just being another football game. And now you take their quarterback who struggled and sit him on the bench, which it looks like for this football game. Marshall can stop the run. So when you're looking at Cronkite, very good running back. When you're looking at Ford, very good running back. But Marshall is a staunch defense. So now you're going to say put the backup in. But, hey, we saw it last night. The kid that played some of the time during the season, split times with Early at UAB comes in, looks like Joe Montana. So whatever surprise we have here for a kid that's thrown in for an average of 66 yards a game and maybe 10 passes a game in his 4 starts, he might look like the reincarnation tonight of Joe Montana. But outside of that, I'm going to take Marshall in this football game. I think they're overall the better team. And if you're going to tell me I have a staunch defense that can stop the run and you're going to play a backup quarterback, I'll lean on Marshall in this football game.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way. Haven't gotten there yet. Ian, how are you feeling? I mean, coaching questions on the USF side. Marshall, Doc Holliday, good coach overall. How much does that factor in? How are you looking to bet Marshall USF?
Yeah, I'm not going to complicate it, Drew. I mean, I bet against a team last night that had a terrible bowl track record, and in this game I'm going to bet on a team that's got a great bowl track record, and that's Marshall. 11-1 straight up and against the spread as a program. In their last 12 bowl games, 5-0 straight up and against the spread in their last 5 games under Doc Holliday alone. So I think it's a situation where, again, that's just a bet on track record. I mean, he's undefeated, Doc Holliday, coaching this team in bowl games. Their defense is fantastic. Now, their quarterback play bothers me a bit. Isaiah Green had injuries this season, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It's not a great ratio by any stretch of the imagination. But I think their defense can get them home here in this game because they can stop the strength of the USF offense, which is running the football. Because to me, Blake Barnett just hasn't been able to get it done consistently, throwing the ball downfield. Talked about how South Florida didn't play well down the stretch, 0-5 straight up their last 5 games. Let's be honest, they feasted on the weak early in the season, including a lot of unimpressive wins against some bad teams like UConn, UMass, Tulsa, and they barely won. A lot of those games. They sort of got exposed as a fraud down the stretch, this South Florida team. They, as Drew mentioned, they lose their offensive coordinator, Sterling Gilbert. He's gone to McNeese State. They have a 31-year-old tight end coach, Justin Burke, calling plays for them here in this game. That's not a bet-on situation for me. I mean, that's very inexperienced on this coaching staff. Not good to me against this Marshall team. And the fact that I think Donnie and Jeff both mentioned about the excitement factor for South Florida. Is it there? I mean, you see these teams going to the Bahamas, going to these big-time places out to California for some bowl games. We're stuck playing just in our home stadium. I know it's going to be a home game for them, but I don't think that's a good thing, playing in your home stadium at bowl season. You want to go somewhere. You want to travel a little bit. You want to see another city, another town. That's not going to be the case here for South Florida. So how excited are they for this game? I think it's a very real question. I'm definitely on Marshall here. This is actually a bet for me, not just a lean. I'll be on Marshall here, laying just 2.5, 3.
Okay. And Donnie, just to go back to Ian's point, do you think it actually hurts USF? I mean, they should have more fans in the stadium, and they actually do, for a G5 program, have a pretty good following. So I would think that there'd be a bunch of fans there. You don't think that would actually be an advantage to be at home?
Yeah, I don't know how much of an advantage it's going to be. I mean, look, when you're at University of South Florida, most kids, it's not really a commuter school, but they're all probably in the general area. But there is something to be said about it being on winter break and not playing like a USF or something that really draw a lot of interest. If you are a student that goes to football games, but you live 50 miles away from campus, are you rolling back into town for this football game when you're already off home with your friends and saying, hey, you want to go to the USF Marshall game at home, maybe in a little bit of questionable weather? I don't see how big of an advantage that would actually be. And if you're Marshall, you say, hey, man, we're getting out of the cold weather, going to go down to some warm weather, play football in a NFL stadium and play an upper level or a conference level up for us. I just think there's more motivation for Marshall. But it is nice to play. I mean, you're used to playing at home, right? I mean, that's where you're from. And, the optics of the stadium. You're going to get to sleep in your own bed. There's something to be said for that. But usually when you have a bowl season, it's more of like a celebration. Like, where are we going, guys? Hey, guys, we're going to play right at home for our bowl. And you're like, is this really a bowl game or just an extension of the regular season at this point?
Yeah, well said. Guys, we got NFL coming up next. First, want to get to Ian Cameron. Maybe a little 60 seconds of NHL update, Ian. You got anything for the watchers out there on the ice?
Yeah, I mean, if you're into hockey, enjoy the next, 5 days, because the Christmas break is coming up for the NHL. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, there will be no NHL games. So basically Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day is the Christmas break period for the NHL. So Sunday is the last day of games, and then Thursday, the season will resume next week, which is good for me. I like a little break. It's been a nice run in hockey for me, but it's nice to get a little break right now, and I'll enjoy that for sure. Teams that won't enjoy the break are the teams that are playing some really good hockey right now. And when you look at it, Tampa Bay just continues to be excellent. Another nice win for them last night. They have been on fire offensively, number 1 in the league in goals per game. They have Andrei Vasilevsky back in net, one of the best goalies in the NHL. Sky's the limit for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know people getting excited about Toronto and getting excited for some other teams in the East. East going through the Tampa Bay Lightning, at least from what I've seen so far.
And Ian, I went to the Boca Bowl last night, so I'm watching Scott Van Pelt's show to kind of catch up on the night. As you guys know, if you go out for the night, it's like you're behind, so you got to find a way to catch up on highlights and stuff. But I was watching the Barry Melrose. He does like 2 minutes with him, and on that Lightning game, I thought it was really interesting. There was a lot of fights. Barry Melrose referred to it as a survival game because you were out there just like not really caring about the puck. How often does that happen in the NHL, man? It was a fun one to kind of see the highlights.
Yeah, you don't usually see that kind of game anymore in the NHL, Drew, where it's just lots of physical play, multiple scrums, a little line brawl going on, a couple fights happening in that game. It was intense. And think about the game. It was Tampa Bay versus Vancouver. It was an East versus West game. It's two teams that don't play each other much. You play each other once in each person's building, twice a season. That's it. And yet that game mustered up that kind of animosity, that kind of physical play, and that kind of nastiness from those two teams, which is fascinating. Sometimes the roughest games of the season from a physicality standpoint, you would think Flyers-Penguins would be the most physical game going. You would think, Blackhawks-Blues would be the most physical game going. You wouldn't think Lightning versus Canucks would be one of the most intense, nasty physical hockey games of the season, yet that's what we had last night.
And how would that affect the kind of betting outcome? Would you look to kind of bet more overs or maybe unders with it just kind of being a brawling type of game?
Yeah, well, definitely it's going to help overs because you're going to get a lot of penalties, a lot of power play opportunities. But it's very hard to predict when that's going to happen. I mean, and especially these days in the NHL when you just don't get the kind of old, quote-unquote old school hockey that you got in the 80s when goalies were fighting, line brawls were happening, pretty much every week. There'd be some sort of big-time brawl in the 80s and 90s. You're not going to see those days back again anytime soon. The enforcer's out of the league because the enforcer, for years, that fourth-line tough guy, he's out there to protect his teammates and nothing else. He has hands like cement. He can't skate worth a bag of beans. So he couldn't really help the team in terms of scoring goals, doing the little things well. He was just out there to protect his teammates and chuck some knucks. That's it. There's no spot anymore for that kind of player in the NHL. He's got to be able to play. He's got to be able to skate. He's got to be able to kill penalties. He's got to be able to chip in some goals. Stu Grimsons of the world and Bob Proberts of the world, they couldn't do that 20, 30 years ago. Now you got to be able to play if you're going to be on a fourth line in the NHL. So as a result, not as many enforcers, not as much of that fun line brawl type of stuff you saw 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, man. Donnie, what about in your opinion, man, when the two goalies skate at each other and then start fighting? Where does that rank as far as great things to watch? In your
opinion? I mean, it was tremendous. I remember back, in the mid-'80s before there was actually a rule that said you weren't allowed to jump over the bench. I mean, bench clearing brawls were a norm. Probably once a week in hockey. You used to see it all the time, especially when the Flyers and the Rangers would square up in the Spectrum in the 80s. That was a thing. Look, 2 guys fighting, 3 guys fighting, 4. One guy goes over the boards, and it's just like the movie Youngblood. The coach says, guys, get out there, and everybody has a great time. They swing, they throw a couple punches, then they go out to the bar after the game and have a beer with the fans. Just a different level of NHL now, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Big man, how do you feel about NHL fighting, man? You think they need to outlaw it, or are you a fan of it?
I I don't really care either way. I would probably say I want to see more of it. Probably. I mean, I think that's one thing that is interesting about it. But I don't. I mean, I don't really watch hockey, so I would probably ask Ian that question. But yeah, I would say we need more of it. I think like we need fans like going over the penalty box into the penalty box like they used to, and they don't see much of that anymore. You don't have those. Do you even have enforcers in hockey anymore? Like, where's the
There's more McSorley at. Yeah, McSorley's got to have a dick in the league still somewhere.
Is Zach Ronaldo still around? Where's he at? Daniel Carcillo, the car bomb, is he still around?
That's the issue with the enforcers. It's not that it's not fun to have one. It's that the NHL's gotten so speed and talent and skill dominated that these tough guys back in the day, they didn't have speed, they didn't have skill, they didn't have an abundance of talent, they couldn't skate all that well. Now they can't play in this type of NHL because now you need fourth liners that can actually play. It can actually kill penalties, skate, chip in offensively, and you just don't have that anymore. But I like the fighting. That's what I think makes hockey kind of cool. You can't you can't throw your helmets off in football and duke one-on-one with a guy in football. You can't do that in basketball. You can do that in hockey, though. What's great is that you can hit a star player, for a big hit, gets everybody upset. Yeah, you're going after our star player. And then next time you see that team down the road, there's this sort of code that goes on. The guy that hits the star player, he's got to answer the bell. Someone's going to look to fight him. And a lot of times the person that hits that star player will drop the gloves, fight it, get it out of the way. Hey, you got to answer for hitting our star player. Have the fight, one-on-one, nobody hurt. Get in there, stop it when obviously they get tired, and the thing's over. You've taken care of the situation. That is one of the beautiful things about hockey. You take care of it with a fight and get it out of your system.
Hey, Ian, I remember one thing about hockey. It was many years ago. I don't know why I was watching this, but I was. It was a Flyer game. They were playing the Rangers, I want to say, and Dan Carcillo was on the Flyers at the time, and I just hear Dick Stockton go, "Carcillo going after Gabrick. What's that all about?" And he starts beating him up, and you could see Gabrick, whatever his first name is, he didn't want any piece of Carcillo. He was just teeing off on this guy, and then I remember Tortorella, the coach at the time, started getting into it with Carcillo, bench to bench, and that stuff is funny. I want to see that kind of stuff. I think we need more scraps of the NBA, and we don't see it much anymore. Where are the Charles Oakleys of the world, and people like that? Those were fun days. But yeah, everything is Drew. Just lame now. Everything about life sucks now. It's not fun anymore. They take all the fun shit out. You can't say anything bad. People like me are vilified because I speak my mind. It's just a shitty world, man, anymore. Everybody doesn't want to see fighting. If I have a gingerbread man, I got to worry about if it's a woman or a man. Everything is so fucking literal. I'm just, I don't know. I'm a liberal guy, but some of the stuff is getting a bit ridiculous. And even in sports, I mean, you can't see fighting anymore. There are kids watching. We can't fight anymore. I don't know. Nothing's sacred anymore. That's all.
Yeah, no, I like it about NHL that they still allow fighting. I hope they keep that because it's a fun thing to watch there, Ian. Guys, we got to get to the NFL due to time constraints. First game up, we got Houston, Philadelphia. Two Philly guys on the show. Interested to hear your guys' opinion. 45.5 the total. The Eagles now 2.5-point favorites at home. Mr. NFL, let's get you in here. Donnie, right side, how you feeling about betting Houston, Philadelphia this weekend?
Yeah, I actually think I agree with the point spread. It's interesting. Opens up as a pick 'em, and now you're seeing 2.5s now popping up at minus juice, like minus 115. So maybe heading to a -3 for the Eagles. Amazing what the public will see one night after another. Dead to rights. All of a sudden, you beat the high and mighty Rams in L.A., and everybody's feeling good about what could possibly happen in Philadelphia. But let's also not forget that Philadelphia cannot stop the pass, no matter what anybody says. And I think that's going to be one of my key indicators here when we give out our best bet plays a little bit later in the show. But just breaking this down as a whole, look, Houston's a good football team, but it's hard to win football games in the NFL. Last week, they did win the game versus the Jets, but they needed DeAndre Hopkins' magic late in that game with, 5 minutes to go? The Jets were winning that football game outright. Ended up being a 7-point game due to that late turnover and a field goal. So they did, depending on what line you got, if you got a good one at 6, 6.5, or, if you took the Jets at 7, depending on if you got a push or a win at that point. But let's look at some interesting information when you go over what the Philadelphia Eagles are actually doing, because in the mindset, what did we see on Sunday Night Football? Man, look at the Eagles, really played well. Look at that defense, came to life. They made some plays out there. Yeah, you're right, but they still gave up 331 yards passing. The week before, 434 yards. Sometimes they're outlier games, so in both of these games, we're going to break down with Houston and Philadelphia. We're going to take Washington completely out of the equation since they don't really have a football team technically, and that's why they only had 131 yards passing versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But before that, the Giants, with their decrepit, aging, wheelchair-bound quarterback, actually had 276 yards passing versus the Eagles. And the game before that, New Orleans, 373. So we're just going to be led to believe that DeAndre Hopkins is just going to get completely shut down in this football game, and the Eagles are going to throw up like a 10 or 12 spot or 13 spot on defense. I don't think that's the case. Now let's roll back on Houston and say, man, that front four really gets after it. Their pass rush is going to be able to collapse the pocket. Well, let's take a look and remove 5 games ago the Washington Redskins, as I said, not an NFL offense whatsoever. They gave up 260 to Tennessee. It's not really a passing football team. 397 to Baker Mayfield. 386 to Andrew Luck, and 228 to a rookie quarterback with the New York Jets last week. Nick Foles and the Eagles will be able to pass in this game. Houston will be able to pass in this football game. The over-under is 45. The weather's going to be nice in Philadelphia. 45, 46 degrees, sunny day, winds under 10 miles an hour. I think that's where I'm going to go in this game, and I'll give that out a little bit later. But overall in the game, if we're looking from a side perspective here, I think I agree with the Eagles. I think the Eagles can get this done by a field goal here and get the win in the cover.
Ian, what about you? How are you feeling about Houston, Philadelphia?
Yeah, Donnie just did one of the Teddy covers moments. We'll get back to this one when it comes to play of the day, something Teddy always said during Sports Bit. But we'll get back to this one, and I'm in complete agreement. The over definitely screams out at me in this game. And the funny thing is, Donnie mentioned the Washington offense, where it looks like Houston's defense was great in that game. They got after it. Well, first of all, Washington's offense is not good. And second of all, their offensive lines had injuries for weeks, if not months now, this Washington offensive line. They've been ravaged by injuries, multiple tackles out, guards out due to injury. So, you do have to put a little asterisk beside that impressive Houston defensive showing in that game with the mash unit that the Redskin O-line has been. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, when I saw that game against the Jets last week, I'm like, boy, Jets are finding receivers wide open. Sam Darnold is finding receivers wide open down the field. And I've said this. There's people that don't believe me when I say it. Houston's got an average secondary. I'm going to say it again. Houston has an average secondary. If they don't get pass rush from Watt, from Clowney, from Merciless, and the quarterback has time to throw the football, he's going to find open receivers. I don't love the pass defense of this Houston team. Not one iota. Here we go again with, is this going to be another magic run for Nick Foles, get us into the playoffs? Well, I don't know what's going on, but there's something to it at this point, because he comes in, he plays a great game on the road against the Rams last week. Solid game, good game. I think great might be stretching it, but it was good. You can tell the Eagles believe in him. There was definitely an uptick in energy, adrenaline with the Eagles last week in that game against the Rams. Think they're going to be able to move the ball here. On the flip side, you've got Deshaun Watson and the fact that he can put Thomas and Hopkins out there against a Eagles secondary, which, let's be honest, receivers have been running wide open against that Eagles secondary. Even last week, we saw it down the stretch, having to hold on. Once the Rams got that passing game going, even without Gurley, they started to shred that Eagles secondary a bit when they tried to make that comeback. I agree with Donnie. It looks like the offenses, to me, both should have some success in this game. Over the total is definitely the way I'd go as well.
And big man, what about in conclusion? How are you feeling? Philadelphia, obviously big win, coming back home. You look to bet on them again?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles obviously know what's in front of them. They got to win these games to, and they have to have other things go wrong. It's really indicative of, there was a season, Donnie, I know Donnie remembers this. I want to say it was 08 or 07 where the Eagles were in a similar situation like this. They needed to win the final game of the season. They need other teams to lose. They're kind of in that predicament again here. Look, Houston's given up 52 sacks this year on Deshaun Watson. Their offensive line is not good. We saw that defensive line for the Eagles really get going last week. Fletcher Cox was all in the backfield. There was all sorts of pass rush going on. That could be obviously a big thing here on the road. But I also wonder, can the Eagles' offensive line deal with J.J. Watt and others? Ian kind of mentioned that. That's going to be a big thing for this offensive line. Jason Peters, continues to look older. You have some right guard or left guard issues with who's going to play there. So that could be a big thing. The trenches are important in this game, but Eagles are flying high. You obviously know what's in front of you. I've said all week, I think Houston will be the public side. And I think, like Donnie said and others, I think the Eagles might be the play in this game. I still worry about their secondary, but again, I think if the pass rush can get there, you're starting to get people back, so I'm not as worried. They're going to give yards up. It's just, can you prevent touchdowns? This is going to be a good matchup for you against this offensive line that is giving up a lot of sacks this year. I think the Eagles will stay in this game. I wish I was getting points here. At Pick'em is tough because Houston's a good football team. I like them a lot, but Eagles are hungry. They're that hungry dog, as Jason Kelsey would say, and they do have some decent matchups in this game. I'll lean Philly, but a lot of that's the fan in me. I hope they win. But I hate to be the guy, but there's just not a lot of games that we've talked about so far that I have a great opinion on. I'll say Eagles 27-24.
Big man, do you have any good opinions on Pitt, New Orleans this weekend?
That should be a great game. We'll get to that one, I believe, right?
Yeah, let's get to it now. We got 53.5 the total. The Saints land 5.5 in the Big Easy. How you feel about betting the Steelers Saints, man?
Yeah, I've been kind of the Pittsburgh guy. I know I think they can go to the Super Bowl. I do. I believe that. I think they have the it really has been next man up running back wise for them. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a chink in the armor for the Saints. This offense does not look the same, and I know they're going to be back at home, but I think we've learned pretty quickly here that this Steeler defense is for real. They're obviously playing well. They have a great defensive line. Look, any time right now, I feel like, and I know it's crazy because they've only won one game really over the last 3 or 4, but I like getting points with a team like Pittsburgh. I think they're pretty hungry. They need to have these games. And I don't really like what I'm seeing from New Orleans right now. Could they get it going at any time? Yes, but we need to understand this is not – you look at this offense outside of Kamara, Michael Thomas, and maybe Ingram. You're basically dealing with a lot of backups. They don't have a lot of playmakers, really. Maybe that's starting to catch up a bit. You square off and just key in on Thomas and get someone to cover Ingram out of the backfield or whoever. It's not as easy. Drew Brees is struggling to move the ball. He's getting passes batted down. I think the Steeler defense is legitimate. We saw that last week. You're not going to have weather issues or anything here. I like the Steelers.
Steelers on the road, you're liking it. Donnie, you feel the same way? You like the Steelers to go into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and come out with the win?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's really tough because, the numbers speak for themselves from Drew Brees at home in that dome and the incredible advantage they have with that place being a dome and loud as it is where you just can't hear anything. And the one interesting thing is we all laughed the past couple of years at how bad the Saints defense is. If you just popped on a tape right now, Saints have one of the best defenses in football. It's amazing when you actually say that. Look at the last couple of games. 149 in the air, Carolina. Tampa Bay, who loves to air it out, 174. The Dallas Cowboys, 208. Atlanta got him a lot of that junk yards in 340. But before that, the Philadelphia Eagles go down there with Carson Wentz, 138 in the air. This is a defense playing extremely well. And Jeff brings up another good point. The Steelers are much maligned to start the year. Another top 5 upper echelon defense that's going to get after it. And we look at the New Orleans offense. There's a lot to be said about, hey, they run a really good system, a really good scheme. But if nobody's explosive on that offense, it takes a lot to score points in the NFL because it's nice when you're cooking and you get 4-play, 72-yard drives for a minute and a half. But if every single drive, it almost looks like it has to be smoke and mirrors at this point, misdirection plays or you hope Kamara breaks a big one, nobody's seeming to be wide open and running wild for the Saints team as they were early in the season. Maybe it has to do with a lot of tape out there, but this is a Steelers defense that's coming in extremely healthy. And let's not also forget from the Monday Night Football game, Armstead's been out a while. He's their best offensive lineman, made the Pro Bowl as of last night. Max Unger left that football game with a concussion at center, and they also lost, I believe it was Bushrod in the last football game. So if we're going to be down maybe 3 offensive line starters possibly in this game with that nasty pass rush coming down on Drew Brees from the Saints, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Early in the week, I was saying, you know what? It's going to be a lot of points scored in this football game because they both have weapons. It's in a dome. I'm sort of changing my focus here because I think looking at both of these defenses over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, some of the best performances in the NFL.
Yeah, no, interesting angle there. They're both getting healthier. Obviously, that matters late in the season. Ian, you want to, wrap it up on the Steelers-Saints?
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm glad someone's mentioning and finally giving applause and accolades to the New Orleans defense, because too often all we talk about is Drew Brees and the attack and how that offense is as explosive as it was for much of the season, although they have slowed down the last 3 weeks, 28 points or less the last 3 games. Definitely slowed down this New Orleans offense, but while the offense is slowing down, the defense is picking up steam. I mean, I'm impressed with this Saints defense more and more that I look at them. You know, Lattimore's been good. How about P.J. Williams? We were seeing that guy struggle in the secondary. He's gotten better as time's gone on. Cam Jordan's played great for them. Marcus Davenport getting a pass rush up front. Demario Davis, the linebacker's been great. You know, the guy with the 80s metal hairstyle, Anzalone. He's flying around making plays for the Saints. I mean, it's a defense now where you got a lot of guys that are playing well right now on this defense. They're getting stops. They're getting better, it seems, with each week. And I wasn't convinced early in the season they had the Super Bowl contender defense, the Saints. I'm starting to think they might now. They're playing really good ball on that side of the football at this point in time. So it's going to be a challenge for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. There's no question. Now, Pittsburgh does have a good offensive line, one of the better offensive lines in football. You know, Foster and DeCastro, guys like that, they've been on this team for years. There's a great O-line, no question, but definitely going to be tested by this New Orleans team. You know, it's New Orleans, to me, that was a big win for them against Carolina on Monday night. You're basically now definitely got the inside track to the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, especially with the Eagles doing you a favor and beating the Rams. Is there a little exhale for the Saints here? Short week, and I will say this about Pittsburgh. They've been underdogs 4 times this season. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in the underdog role this season, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've been phenomenal catching points, winning outright every time they have. I don't want to say that there's no urgency for New Orleans, because there is. They still need to absolutely clinch the number 1 seed. Haven't quite done that yet, even though it looks like they're gonna. But for Pittsburgh, they need every win they can get. The playoffs are still very much up in the air for them. They could go a long way. I think you're going to get effort. I think you get a little confidence back. The way they shut down Tom Brady and the Patriots in the fourth quarter, when they tried to tie that game, they held them out of the end zone multiple times, including the goal line stand late, the interception late that Brady threw. That's a confidence booster for Pittsburgh. Usually when I bet the Steelers, it doesn't end well, and that's my concern and what I'm worried about. But I'm going to lean a little bit to Pittsburgh here, getting the plus points.
Good breakdown, Ian. And guys, we're kind of running out of time. We do have best bets coming up. Did want to just touch on the LA Rams Arizona Cardinals game and just really the betting profile of the Rams. You know, one of the best teams out the gate, and then here Jared Goff has struggled down the stretch. They've lost 2 straight. Donnie, do you have any opinion here on buying the Rams? I guess we're not really buying low if you decide to bet on them. You're having to lay 13.5 against a bad Cardinals team. But just the overall profile at this time in the regular season in the NFL, would you look to bet on the Rams or look to fade them down the stretch?
At this point right now, I think they're in a little bit of upheaval, which is a time I think that you want to bet them, because if they're coming off 2 separate losses, now you start to shake it up. I mean, they are having some struggles in the locker room, and a lot of these guys are mercenaries, brought in 1-year deals, super team. Let's see if we can get it done this year, and then we'll see what happens in the offseason. But, I mean, you lost to 2 teams that were still pretty hungry. Going to the Chicago Bears and losing at Soldier Field in freezing cold temperatures. I mean, a lot of us had that game and said, you know what, Chicago should win that football game. It was surprising last week that the Eagles jumped them right out of the gate. I don't think we saw that here. Nick Foles certainly gave the Eagles a bump. But let's also maybe rewind a little bit. If there's not a fumble on a punt return, the Rams are going down the field and scoring a touchdown. They got plenty of time and probably end up winning the game in overtime just to overcome that. So I think you're getting a lot of people say, oh, here they come. But there's one added here that's a little bit of a detractor if you're looking to jump on the Rams in this type of game. Todd Gurley's banged up now. He's the engine that makes that offense go. When he's 100% healthy, they move up and down the field typically. I mean, obviously not against the Chicago Bears, but he got hurt fairly early or dinged up in that Eagles game, and it wasn't the same. So if he's going to go into this week and maybe a rest-and-see approach like they've been doing with Melvin Gordon for the Chargers, maybe not so much. But if he lines up and plays, they should just roll Arizona. Arizona's already talking about firing their head football coach. They're getting some of the most anemic quarterback play that we've seen, even though he is a rookie. There's absolutely no weapons on that football team, and everybody's on IR. I mean, if they go out and score 24 points, they'll probably cover the 14, which is hilarious.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And Big Man or Ian, any closing thoughts real quick on betting the Rams or fading the Rams?
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I took my shot betting Arizona last week against Atlanta. And they had I'm looking at the game, and they're like, wow, what a start for Arizona, 7-0. And that was all she wrote after that point for the Arizona Cardinals. Last week was my chance. I'm like, you're getting 10 points against an Atlanta team that's not going anywhere. They can't possibly be overly excited. A 4-9 football team, not making the playoffs, now laying 10 points at home. Well, obviously they showed why they were laying 10 points at home in that game. Arizona was that freaking awful last week against the Atlanta Falcons. Their defense couldn't stop anybody after that one. They had really one great play on offense all day. That was that big pass play, Rosen to David Johnson, set him up for that first touchdown, got him in the red zone. That was it. I mean, their offense was terrible at that point. I took my chance betting Arizona thinking, hey, Atlanta can't be laying 10 to anybody right now. Well, they could be laying 10, yes, to that Arizona team because they suck. They stink. Their defense can't stop anybody. The Byron Leftwich experiment, unfortunately, is not going well because I'm not seeing any progression, none, zero, from Josh Rosen or from this offense. Now, the problem is, can you lay 13 with the Rams? I don't want Arizona. Can you lay 13 with the Rams? I'm not sure. The Rams have been a point spread disaster now for well over a month. They have been burning money hand over fist, and this is a team that I'm concerned building a margin, as Donnie mentioned. Todd Gurley's not got that same zip. Jared Goff is making mistakes now that he didn't make. What has he got? 7, 8 interceptions the last 3 games? It's not good, what we're seeing now all of a sudden from Jared Goff. So, but is Arizona going to score against the Ram defense? The Ram defense that's probably not very happy about losing that game against the Eagles last week, letting Nick Foles move the ball down the field. I know the Rams defense has shown vulnerabilities at times, but this is a Arizona offense that has stopped themselves every bit as much as the opponent has stopped them in recent weeks. So very, very tough game. I don't know if I can stomach laying this many points with the Rams in their state right now, but will I back Arizona this week or at any other time in the last couple weeks? Hell no. I took my chance, got burned for it. I'm not in any rush to do it again.
And Big Man, any closing thoughts on betting the Rams down the stretch and just lead us off into your best bets, man?
Yeah, I don't have much in this game. I mean, Cardinals are pretty bad, but I mean, how much they really care about covering this game and winning by, 2-3 touchdowns? I'm kind of off this game. For me, I best bet. I'm gonna kind of look to this one. I kind of waited for this line to come out, and this is just kind of the lame college basketball person in me and the guy that cares about games like this. But I care about it, so I'll take a shot with it. You might have to help me on the line here. I think I can get 19.5 with this one. 465, 466. St. John's taking on St. Francis of Brooklyn. This St. John's team, I haven't seen enough from yet. They seem like they are needing Shamari Ponce a lot to rescue them in games against opponents that they probably should beat a little bit more handily. They don't have a lot of depth right now on this team. Yeah, they're playing literally 6 or 7. That's what they're doing every night, Chris Mullen, and they're not getting a lot of contributions from everyone else. It's really been one player that's had to shoulder the load. I look at St. Francis, a team out of the Northeastern Conference. They're playing pretty well this year. They're a team that I think, when I look at this schedule, I think could give St. John's some problems. They're from the same city. They're obviously going to look forward to this game a little bit. A New York basketball game. We're taking on a team that's better than we are. They're generally pretty good from the three-point line. They have a good tempo to them. They have a guy named Chauncey Hawkins that I think can do some good things in this game. And, overall, I think it's a game where I think they can hang within 20 points. You look at recently, St. John's has started to, again, struggle a little bit in finding that knockout punch. They haven't gotten it. I think for me with St. Francis, a pretty decent team. I think they come in here, maybe give some trouble to St. John's. They're not going to win, but I'll take 19.5, 20 points in this game. I just don't know what what I'm seeing from St. John's currently.
And big man, what's St. Francis's mascot?
St. Francis mascot. I want to say wow, man. I want to say they're the Terriers. Yeah,
the Terriers. All right.
See, here's the problem, Drew. St. Francis. There are two St. Francis's. One is in New York and Brooklyn. The other's in Pennsylvania. Now, the one in Pennsylvania, they're the Red Flash. I know that. St. Francis. I want to say they're the Terriers, but yeah, you might have stumped me.
Wow, and guys out there, I didn't mean to. I guess I put him on the spot, but I've asked him questions like that. We've done shows a lot, and he always gets them. So that was a hell of an ask by me. I'm really proud of myself. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna go on the ESPN2 game tonight. Bruce Pearl and company. Auburn Tigers. They were just pick 'em. Market just moved them. Screen just went black.
By the way,
-1 or
-1.5. You didn't get
the Terriers.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, okay. So your guess was right.
No soup for you again.
All right, I'll get you one of these days. I'm on Auburn -1 ESPN2 tonight. Donnie, what about you? What do you got for best bets, man?
Yeah, we talked about earlier, 113, 114. We'll keep in the NFL, 1 o'clock. Decent day for a December afternoon in Philadelphia. Two teams that should be able to move the football. I mean, look, Houston has a pretty good defense, but I think what the Eagles want to do last week against a ferocious pass-rushing team with the Los Angeles Rams, get the ball out quick. You don't take sacks. If Carson Wentz was in this football game, I actually might worry because, Carson's the much better quarterback, but if you have a nasty front four getting pressure, the last thing I want my quarterback to do is try to stay in the pocket and extend plays because it leads to turnovers from forced fumbles on strip sacks. I think the Eagles have a pretty good passing outlet because when you look at the past, few weeks or the MO for the front seven of Houston, they're going to shut down the running game. The Eagles don't have much of a running game, and Josh Adams, I believe, is injured this week or coming in this week with an injury. Thank goodness, because they're a much better football team to me when he's out of the lineup. Give the ball to Sproles 30 times if you want to and throw it to him 20 out of the backfield. That's going to help this offense, sort of circumvent that pass rush. I think the Eagles will be able to move the football. Houston, albeit, has struggled in the passing game, but who better team to line up against than those Philadelphia Eagles, who have barely anybody left in that secondary and an all-world wide receiver? Sean Watson should be able to take some deep shots downfield. We're not asking for 66 points. It's 45 on a decent day in Philadelphia. Both of these teams should play into the 20s. I'm going to go with my over of 45 in this game as my best bet on the roundtable.
Yeah, you can get 45s out there. There are a lot of 45.5s. Bet online, you wagered both at 45. So we got Donnie at over 45, Philadelphia, Houston. He's been hot in his best bets. And Ian Cameron, last not least, follow him on Twitter, at Babano. What do you got for best bets, bud?
Yeah, well, we only have 2 NHL games. The NFL slate, we're still waiting for injuries with that. I'm not in love with this college football bowl slate. So for the first time this season, I'm going college basketball with best bet for tonight. We're going to go to West Coast action. How about Boise State, Loyola, Marymount? We've got Loyola Marymount 4.5, 5 in this game. I do not think this is one of Boise State's good basketball teams. I have not been enamored with anything I've seen from Leon Rice's group. Remember, this is a team that's had some pretty good players in the past. Derek Marks, Anthony Dermich. They've had some really good Boise teams. This ain't one of them. You look at them, the 4 wins they've had this season. Alabama State, Central Washington, Jackson State. Their best win, St. Bonaventure, for this Boise State team. That's not good. Their offense has been stagnant. They can't shoot the ball very well. That's a problem. They're a terrible free throw shooting team, and that's going to be a difference maker in the end. You look at these two teams at the charity stripe, there is almost a 10% differential in these two teams' ability to shoot free throws. Loyola Marymount nearly 10% better at the free throw line than Boise State. I think that shows up, and I'm starting to give the West Coast Conference its due. This is not just Gonzaga and St. Mary's anymore. It's time to pay attention to what some of these other teams are doing in this conference. San Diego's a very good basketball team. Look at what San Francisco's doing. The Dons having a good start. BYU's turned it around after a rough start. This is a conference finally that's having some depth to it. It's not just Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and everybody else anymore. And Loyola Marymount's one of those teams. They've tested themselves. I know they got battered by UCLA, but they've tested themselves with a couple of solid opponents. I think they're a team that can spread the floor a little bit better than Boise State can. I like the fact that this Loyola Marymount team is playing very good defense so far under Mike Dunlap. I think one of his better teams since he's been the coach there. 40% shooting, 25% allowed from the three-point range, 60 points per game. All you got to do is lay 4.5, 5 here. And again, 78% at the free throw line for Loyola Marymount, 69% at the free throw line for Boise State. That could show up late in this game. I think it's a cheap price to lay. I think Boise State's not, to be honest, any good right now. I'll lay the 4.5, 5 here with Loyola Marymount for my best bet.
All right, like in Loyola Marymount. And guys, we will be back next Wednesday, the day after Christmas, 10 a.m. Eastern every Wednesday here. So won't see you before Christmas on the Roundtable. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating out there. Enjoy it with your family, friends, and don't bet anything you can't afford to lose here over the holiday season. For Jeff Nadeau, Ian Cameron, Donnie Rightside, I'm Drew Martin. We'll see you next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Thanks, everyone.